What's up guys, and welcome back to Tech Plant. Today I'm going to show you how to grow cactuses from dragon fruit. Let's check it out. Alright, and to get things started, the first thing you're going to have is a dragon fruit. You can get these at most grocery stores. I don't know if they're really seasonal, but I seem to see them quite often nowadays. So you're just going to have to pick one of these up. Next, you're just going to cut right into the side. You don't have to worry about cutting the seeds because there's about 1 million of them inside. Maybe not 1 million, but there are so many that the few that might possibly get cut aren't going to affect your overall project here. For this video, I am going to try 3 different methods, so we'll start with the first one, and that is using a blender to separate the pulp from the seeds. I'm trying to experiment with a really easy, quick way to actually get the pulp off of the seeds because there's other ways I'm going to show you, but they're a lot more manual. After actually using the blender and looking at the seeds at the end, a lot of them are chopped up, but there are quite a few that did survive, so maybe if you're not looking to have a ton of these plants, this isn't the worst method. The next method, which is a little more labor intensive, involves using some sort of grate or a strainer, really just something rough that you can push the seeds up against to scrape the pulp away. You don't really need a strainer, but it does work a lot better. Again, you just need something kind of rough that you can mush around the seeds and break apart that pulp. They don't have to be perfectly clean either, by the way. Looking at the macro footage though, you can see there's quite a difference between the hand done ones and the blender ones. For this experiment as well, I'm just going to use some regular potting soil. This one might have a little bit of sand and stuff in there, so it might be a little more cactus orientated in the sense that it's pretty well draining. I did add a little extra perlite, but for the most part, it's pretty normal. The 2 big containers, we're going to do the seeds that went through the blender and the seeds that were just kind of pushed through the strainer. And then the last little square pot, we're just going to toss in that little slice. I've seen that on the internet and I definitely want to try it and see if it actually grows or just rots. So we'll see. In the blue one, I'm going to put the blender seeds, and a lot of them got stuck to the paper towel. It kind of dried on there and I couldn't get it off. So I want to try if this is just a possible method to try and germinate these things. So I'm going to try planting it with the paper towel and everything. After I got them all planted, I'm just going to top them off with a little bit of soil, get them nice and wet, and then put a little humidity dome over them. In this case, it's just a bag, but it should work just fine. Alright, 9 days have passed. Let's take a look and see what kind of progress we're looking at. From the looks of it so far, the strainer method has been the best. There are a few sprouts already popping up compared to the other one with the blender / paper towel stuff. That one only has like 1 or 2, definitely less than the other one. But overall, I'm shocked that these sprouted so fast. I was thinking because it's a cactus, it would take a lot longer. Let's let these go over more time and see what happens next. Alright, 20 days has passed since the initial planting, and already you can start to see there is quite a difference. The one we used the strainer for has a ton of seedlings, and the one that we used the blender for is still lagging behind. Looking closer at the one with the paper towel and with the blender, you can see there's only a few seedlings coming up. They are sprouting kind of all over the dish, but very few. Switching over to the one that we used the strainer on, you can see seedlings everywhere. Well, I shouldn't say everywhere, but there's a lot sprouting along the edges of the container, with maybe a few coming up more in the center. Here's a look at the seedlings up super close, and they are fantastic. You can see the tiny little cactus starting to sprout out from the main seedling. This is actually pretty exciting for me because I've never grown cactus before. The pot with the slice in the middle buried, looks like there is 1 tiny sprout coming up in the middle, but other than that, all the green is just perlite with algae, so nothing yet from this one. Skipping about a month from when we first planted these seeds, let's take a look. Again, you can see the one with the blue tape, that is the blender seeds. Not doing so good, but there are probably about 10 sprouts in there, but they are pretty far behind. Looking at the one we used the strainer just to pull the meat away from, is absolutely packed with seedlings. There's even more than previously before, and they're getting quite big. Looking at the pot with the slice that we just planted, you can see some sprouts popping up. I'm surprised it actually worked, just because I thought it would all rot away. But it's still a little behind everything else. Coming back to our strainer seeds, the really successful pot, I want to repot some of these just in different spots in the dirt because they all seem to have gotten clumped along the edges. I don't know if when I watered it, they kind of got forced to the edge or what, but I want to give them a little more space so they're not so much on top of each other. This will actually be a good test to see if you can transplant these early on without harming them too much. Also, I am watering these cactuses quite a bit, more than I thought I would have to, pretty much keeping the soil moist all the time. Maybe it's because they're only seedlings, but they seem to be doing alright like that. Alright, we are about a month and a half from when we initially planted these. Let's take a closer look. Starting with the strain seeds, these are doing fantastic even after transplanting. It didn't do anything. In fact, it seemed to have helped them, honestly. If you look in the middle, the bigger ones seem to be the ones that I moved around. They're getting pretty big again, so I think what I'm going to do is end up transplanting some of these to another pot just to give them space. but you can really see the cactus in these things. I'm so excited and so happy that this is working out. The blender seeds are really not doing well at all. I think the blender is way too vicious and just damaged the seeds a little too much. Looking at our slice pot, it's filling in quite nicely. Again, way behind the main like strainer meat pot, but still it's catching up. Alright, skipping ahead in time, about 2.5 months since we planted these seeds, and you can see the growth has been absolutely incredible, at least for some of the pots. Some of the others, not really at all. Just like last time, the blue blended ones have done pretty much nothing. There's been a few on the outside, but other than that, pretty much nothing. The sliced one, it's starting to catch up a little bit. We're starting to see some cactuses forming, but again, not as good as the actual strained ones. I am going to reposition some of these so they're not all clumped up. But for being meat, it's looking quite nice. I mean, I really thought that everything would just rot away. The only problem with using the slice though is they're all kind of bunched up in the middle and you can't distribute it very well. Maybe cut it up into pieces first. Looking at our more successful one, the ones we use the strainer with, they're fantastic. I mean, these are actual cactuses at this point. Look at the tiny little spikes that they have. I don't know, this is just absolutely exciting for me. Well, ignore the fungus gnats, by the way. This soil is producing tons. But anyways, I'm so excited to see that these cactuses are growing so well. Alright, we are at 3 months since we planted these seeds. I have given up on the slow blended one with a paper towel. It just wasn't doing it for me and it was taking up space and just too slow. And I also got rid of the ones that were from the slice. Again, they just took way too long to grow and I don't have the space for them. And I've got these already super big ones, so I wasn't too worried about it. But just look at the size of this. We're at only 3 months and these cactuses are huge. I really expected them to grow a lot slower just because I always thought cactuses grew so much slower. Or maybe cacti. I'm probably doing this all wrong, but whatever. My point is they're growing fantastic. Again, I'm watering these quite often and they're under really bright grow lights, so they're drying out quick as well. But they seem to be doing great. I believe we're 4 months away from when we first planted these seeds, and take a look at these cacti. They are incredible. If you compare them to the size of my hand, they're darn near as long as my fingers and actually a little bit longer, and they're just really starting to get their character. Something super interesting about these is they do put out random roots along the sides. I noticed it's where it was leaning up against plastic or any other moisture. I bet you these things could almost climb something, and I think they actually kind of do. I know a lot of people who grow these do this along like boards of wood just to support them and allow them to grow properly. I definitely need to think about start doing that, but I'm going to let them get a little bigger before I start selecting for that. But overall, the growth has been fantastic. I have been fertilizing these with diluted fertilizer, and again, because they're under strong grow lights and they dry out often, I'm watering them quite often. Alright, we are at 4.5 months and these things are getting unruly, they're getting long, and they're starting to kind of fall over. I do think these are supposed to grow upwards on something, or at least with support, otherwise they just kind of lay over like this. So I'm going to repot some and just see how well they do from that before I start strapping them to a stick or something, just because I want to kind of get them apart before really doing anything else with them, just in case they don't survive. I'm going to end up repotting these in just regular potting soil with a lot of added perlite. If you've got strong grow lights, they're going to dry out quick anyways, and you can keep watering them as soon as they dry out, and I don't think you're going to need any special soil. However, if you're not using grow lights or you don't have a south-facing window, I would definitely recommend finding well-draining soil so you don't waterlog these things and cause rot. I'm not really sure what to do at this point or what I'm supposed to do at this point. I probably should have looked it up, but I'm just experimenting and trying some stuff out. So I'm just potting 1 or 2 up in these smaller pots, and then at the end I'm going to pot a huge clump into one kind of planter just because I want to see where it goes. I'm kind of experimenting with the actual display of them almost. I really like the idea of this like bushy pot just full of little cactuses, so we'll see how that goes and matures. Overall, I'm really excited with how this all turned out. I wasn't sure because this was the first time I've really grown any sort of cactus from seed, but it really grew well and exceeded my expectations. These cactuses are huge, at least from my perspective. Maybe they're small compared to other pro growers, I don't know, but I definitely want to keep growing these and see where I can get them. It would be awesome to get some dragon fruit in the next few years. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. It was super cool to see the whole process, how long it takes, and what you can kind of expect in a few months. I thought they grew pretty darn quick, but again, I don't have much experience with cactuses, so maybe a lot of them grow this quick, I don't know. But I hope you guys stay tuned for more updates. I'm going to keep following these along and keep recording footage of them and just kind of see where we end up over the course of a year or so. So I hope you guys stick with me. As always, may your plants grow strong and healthy. I'll see you next time.